forgive me if I read these words. On Monday morning, when I awoke, I knew that I would be meeting with Pastor Ron to plan this service for Josiah. One of the most difficult things I could ever imagine doing would be to be asked to speak at my son's funeral. However, as hard as that seemed to me, it seemed even more difficult to not speak. Since Josiah was about 10 years old, I began a journal that I addressed to him. The journal was not because we had trouble communicating. It was simply an ongoing conversation that I wanted to have with my son. I did not write in it every day or even every week. My writing was usually triggered by an event. The day we put Josiah's puppy to sleep, I wrote. The day after being evacuated from Abidjan, and Josiah and I traveled back together to close our home and say goodbye to the ones we loved, I wrote. The many days that he started over in a new school. The day he called me screaming on the phone because Coach Schweider had informed him he made the team. Though I couldn't understand what he was saying that day on the phone, I knew it must be good. Drama was not one of Josiah's strong suits. When he got excited, he always spoke in French. I wrote it at the days when Josiah was laid up in a hospital in Dakar, wondering if he would ever play football again or even walk. I wrote in it the day that he wrote to us from Japan to tell us that he was sure he had fallen in love. I wrote for two reasons. The first was to give it to my son one day. And if he wanted to, he could read not only about the events, but also about some of my reflections and the things I was asking God for him. Second, and maybe more importantly, was a reminder of God's faithfulness, a way to remember all the ways and times that God was faithful. I will never have the opportunity to give this to Josiah, but maybe God knew that I would be the one who needed it. I simply want to share with you the words I wrote this morning. The words are not many, not because I can't think of anything to say, but because that's how Josiah would want it to be. Josiah, my son, what your mom and Angel and Nadia and I have been living these last 4 days is something I could never have imagined. Not the event and not the pain. Last Friday evening, we celebrated your birthday together, giving thanks to God for the gift that you are to our family. I wrote in your card, "You are a great son, and I am proud of you. You are way ahead of where I was at your age." Over the last days, as I have gone through your papers, your accounts, your prayer journal, as I have listened to the stories about your life, I am struck by the truth of the words spoken. The prayer your mother and I prayed for you almost every day was that God would give you a tender heart for him and for other people. And God answered our prayer. We are so proud of the man that you became. You hated being in the spotlight. In fact, you ran away from it. Yet you seemed to leave a print everywhere that you walked. Your physical strength was formidable, but kindness was what marked your way. For yourself, you had unending expectations. You were loyal and one of the most perseverant people I have ever known. Yet you extended grace to others who stumbled. When I would ask you to help me at church to remember someone's name, you rarely could remember the adults' names. but the names of the babies and toddlers you never forgot. Isaac and Luca and Cody, and the list goes on. On Sunday, I found your journal. The last entry was words from Matthew chapter 6, about laying up your treasure in heaven. There were little prayers scribbled in the margins, 2-word prayers, 3-word prayers. You are not one to waste words. One of the prayers was simply asking God to help you to learn to not let wealth have any sway in your life. Poignant words for a guy who owned 2 shirts and 1 pair of pants. On Saturday, your race ended. The last 2 laps were very much like the 22 years that came before. You did not sprint, you did not walk, you just quietly jogged into the arms of your loving Father. The fact that you got home first gives us a little assurance that things will be in order when we get there. In August of 1989, at Long Hill Chapel in Chatham, New Jersey, your mother and I dedicated you to God. We affirmed that you are a gift and that it was God who was the giver. We not only gave you back to God, but we entrusted you into His hands. Josiah, I am going to attempt to continue to write in this journal, not for you, but for me. I guess in the end, all the words are really addressed to God. I am sure the words I write are going to be full of questions and groans and laments. My hope is that in so doing, we will remember to thank God for the gift that you are and were to us. I am not sure we will ever fully recover from this loss or fully understand God's ways. But as we continue to walk, and as I continue to write, I do believe that He will allow us to one day see His redemptive plan. I love you. And I affirm the words that you heard from the mouth of your Savior. Well done.